Hi, I'm Suzanne McNeil. I just returned from a wonderful trip to the Baltics, and here is my sketchbook. I'd love to share it with you. It was a wonderful trip. So I actually made this sketchbook from scratch. This is a piece of red leather that I wrapped around the edges, and then I bound every page into here by hand. So on this trip, I took individual pages and I worked on those, and then when I got home, I bound it together. So it was a surprise trip. The travel news, I was planning to go to Mexico on an art trip, and they didn't get enough people, so I had to real quick find another trip. I know that overseas adventure travel always has wonderful trips, so I found this trip to the Baltics. 5 countries, 5 languages, 5 cultures, 5 governments. It was so revealing. I really knew nothing about the Baltics other than that the war was there, World War II, and the people were very, very oppressed. So I did a little cartoon about what happened to my trip. Whoops, my trip fell through, so I had to get a ticket and find another trip. Here's a map. And so we flew to Poland and then worked our way up, all the way up to St. Petersburg, Russia. What happens is I often come back from a trip and my friends will go, "Oh, Suzanne, what'd you do?" I'm like, I was gone 3 weeks, but my mind is just blank. I can't remember a thing we did. So what I like to do is just keep a little synopsis of my trip, what we do day 1, day 2, 4, 5, 6, and that really helps me remember everything we did, just the highlight of each day. And here's my passport information, my Russian visa, and this is a little miniature fake passport. I love to put that in my journal. This is actually a real Russian passport, and it is canceled. It was many, many years old, but this person traveled a lot. My sketchbook supplies I took, and then in this particular sketchbook, I included journaling, and photographs and sketches. This is a little card my daughter gave me. This is a little antique shop that I visited, and the proprietor. This is a medal. I was able to buy this just on the street, and it is an award medal for someone who did a good job for that government. A few old postcards, letters, money. Of course, I can't read them, but they're still significant. I had a really bad time making my connection in the Frankfurt airport, and that started off my trip really bad, but I guess I used up all my bad luck that one day. So everything else worked like clockwork. It's a long, long flight over there, 14 hours, DFW to Krakow. So I kept a record of what I did every hour on the airplane. That, by the way, plus 9 hours in the Frankfurt airport due to a bad connection. Krakow is where we flew to in Poland. It's a little Polish flag and sketches of the Krakow, things I liked. Old postage stamp, I love these. Here's the ghetto. The memorial to the ghetto, 68,000 people. Buildings that I liked in Krakow. This is Schindler's Factory, if you saw the movie Schindler's List. And in Schindler's Factory, they gave us time cards so we could pretend we were working there. They made metalware and munitions for the government. Here's Warsaw. Here's a picture of Warsaw after the bombing. It was just totally destroyed. This is from the a tile floor in the factory. This is a Jewish cemetery. I thought this was really interesting. They write notes and put a rock on them so they won't blow away to their beloved ones. Old Jewish bookstore. And I love the Catholic cathedral. And 90% of Poland is Catholic now. So very interesting. Oh, I had to stop and get a Coke with ice. There's not a lot of ice over there. and Polish folk art. I just love all their cut paper and their painted icons. Beautiful. This is all cut paper. Just think how intricate that is. Some of their painted icons. Madame Curie was from Poland, and she did not patent her invention. She thought they should be of use to all people and benefit. So this is Auschwitz. I did black pages for this. Prison camp, work camp, death camp. Really a sad place to visit. So they collected, there's a whole room of eyeglasses. That's how the people had to sleep. Photos of prisoners. Whole room full of shoes. Whole room full of combs and brushes. Just to remind you of the horrible times that existed there. Here's the gate to Auschwitz, and it says, work will make you free. Well, of course, a lot of the people never got free. Here's Warsaw, Old Town. This was our guide, Philippe. He was interesting. Lithuania. Now we're gone to Lithuania. And I love all the Orthodox churches in these Baltic countries. They're just fabulously beautiful. All the icons from the churches. Here we are eating at a restaurant, our little group. There were actually 15 of us. Here was our first hotel that we stayed in. Krakow, beautiful Orthodox church and some icons. This one was a big Catholic church. Just churches on almost every corner, all different types of churches and synagogues. So I love this picture. Here I am with an old coat of old armor suit. This was a castle we visited, Trakai Castle. We met this lady, Irene. She and her family were sent to Siberia during the war. Russia invaded these Baltic states and sent many, many people to Siberia after they took their homes and their property. We visited the KGB Museum, so I have a few snippets of things we saw there. Here's a beautiful countryside. While we were riding on the bus, they have storks. Their telephone poles are all two things. They have local windmills, barns, cattle. They were harvesting the hay. Here we visited the Hill of Witches. We don't think they're real witches, but they have a lot of fairy tales in this part of the country. And these were wooden statues that were carved 40 years ago. And as you hiked along the hill, you ran into these. We visited Klaipėda. Here's the Baltic Sea. Some of our people went swimming. This part of this country belongs to Russia. All the rest of it belongs to that country. Lunch with people. We were entertained here. We visited Rumsiskas. It was a heritage museum, sort of like a living museum, and with guides and old homes, crosses. And the funny thing was, even though oh my gosh, we went to the ocean and found some amber. I found a piece about as big as a pinhead. This is the Hill of Crosses. Thousands and thousands of crosses. A Baroque palace. Here's Irene again. Now, she was 13 when she was sent to Siberia, and she lived there for about 15 years out in the cold with her mother and brother, and now she's 90 years old. She did come back. Here from the Hill of Witches, these are the carved statues, and these are 40 years old. Oh, the amber was, of course, I didn't find pieces that big, but there's a lot of amber, and it actually washes up on the beaches of the Baltic Sea. And they do a lot of shipping. The Baltic Sea is very important because that's the gateway to shipping merchandise from the Baltics. Here's the Hill of Crosses. I think 20,000 crosses, still counting. Here are the storks up on a telephone pole. Beautiful forest. These are old buildings that are just abandoned since the Russians gave the Baltic countries back to the original countries. Here we are visiting the Trakai Castle, and more castles, more antique buildings, more churches. Everything is just beautiful. They had gorgeous horses pulling the wagons. And I was telling you about Rumsikas, that was a folk art museum, but they were having a music festival there, so 25,000 young people with their tents camping out, visiting the music all together on the same property. Here we are eating dinner. See this piece of amber that I found? About as big as a pinhead. And this was very interesting in Vilnius. They put locks on the bridges there, so if there's a couple, when they get married, they put that lock on there it's a symbol to preserve their relationship. And so I'm going to go pretty fast, but I would recommend to anyone that you visit this part of the country, because I really didn't know that much about it other than the prison camps in Poland. But I didn't know that the Baltics were invaded and actually occupied for 50 years. So a whole 2 generations they were occupied, and then they got their freedom back, and now they're working on being very prosperous countries. In fact, Skype was invented in Estonia. Who would have dreamed? So let me just go through quickly. So I've combined my sketch at McDonald's was there, Circle K, Burger King. Riga has these beautiful, beautiful Art Deco buildings. Here are the beaches. They're all parasailing. And yeah, they have little cat hostels on the streets here. And they have these wild cats. They neuter them, clip off their ears, and people feed them, and they eat the local rats. Our guide was Marita, and she took us to her farm. This is her 8-year-old daughter. They have horses, goats. Here's her mother. They raise blueberries. I'm always interested in propaganda posters. So here we are in Estonia. Fabulous museum here. Here are a couple of my friends. And icons. Here's our hotel in Tallinn, a big Radisson. Normally we stayed in a little more colloquial hotels. So I found this photo in an antique store. And I'm going to go through this quickly. Just amazing old palaces. This is actually Riga. You can see how modern the city is. And then just a few blocks away, we could walk to Old Town. In their restaurants, they actually supply blankets for people in the winter. This was stenciled on the ground to tell you there were pickpockets. Here we are going across the Russian border. And another passport, more beautiful things, all the beautiful nesting dolls. And coming back to America, here we are. And my favorite things, couldn't wait to get back to pecan pie, Dr. Pepper with ice, TV in English, and steak, get my own bed, and finish my sketchbook. So I hope you enjoyed it.